Let's add items and a custom item group. Alright, we find ourselves back in the tutorial once more, and in this tutorial we're going to be adding a custom items and a custom item group to Fabric in 1.19.3. Please do note at the top right corner the compatibility. Please note if you're in a future version, check the comments or the description for the compatibility. But what do we need for a custom item? Well, the first thing in the tutorial mod package, we're going to right-click new package called item. And then inside of there, we're going to make a new Java class called the mod items class. Now, this is where all of our items are going to go. And how do we actually add an item? Well, for this, what we're going to need is, first of all, we're going to need a helper method to actually register those items. And that is going to be a private static item from net Minecraft item right here. Just hit the tab key to autocomplete, and we're going to call this the register item method. We need parentheses inside of there. We're going to put the name parameter as well as an item parameter, and then afterwards just put in the curly brackets, and then there you go. We're going to return registry, making sure that we choose net Minecraft registry. Extremely important, not Java RMI registry, net Minecraft registry. Hit enter to autocomplete. .register, and then here we're going to choose registries dot item. Once again, autocomplete with the tab key that this is going to add it to your imports at the top, comma, new identifier from net Minecraft util, tab once again, tutorial mod.mod ID, then putting in the name, and you can see I basically always press the tab key to autocomplete this after the first parentheses, comma, item, and then ending it with a semicolon. No errors should be present at this point, and we should be fine. What we're then going to need is a new item. So now we're going to actually create this item. This is a public static final item. Now the first item is going to be citrine, going to be equal to the register item method right here. When we start typing the name, so you can see I started typing a quotation mark to make a string, and this name right here generates automatically. You do not have to type this out, and this is going to be called citrine. And then afterwards we need make a new item right here. Inside of here we make new fabric item settings. There you go, and then just end it with a semicolon, and the item has been registered. Now it hasn't been registered fully because we also need another public static void register mod items method, and this is just going to do the following: tutorial mod.logger.debug, let's say, or info, either one works fine, and this is going to be registering mod items for, and then it's going to register this for our tutorial mod.mod ID. This is just basically an output. Now the reason we need to call this method, so we need to call this in the tutorial mod class in the onInitialize method, so right here, mod items.register mod items. Now you might say, well, this doesn't really do anything. Well, actually it does do something, and it basically sort of initializes this class so that all of the different items are actually properly registered. One thing that has not happened yet is this item has not been added to a item group. This is correct because for this we need some more additional methods. This is a change in 1.19.3. So first of all, we're going to add it to a vanilla item group, and then after we've actually seen this item in game, we're then going to add a custom item group as well. So this is going to be a public static void add items to item group. Going to be the method over here. And we're going to make another helper method, which is actually going to be private for the time being. Public static void add to item group. And then we're going to make an item group parameter here called group, and then an item. So we're going to add this item right to this particular group. And the way that this is going to work is we're going to call the item group events .modify entries, passing in the group right here, .register, and then entries, and then you can see this is a lambda expression, so entries and this little arrow over here, and then here we're going to say entries.add, then passing in the item. This is going to add this item to this particular group. And then inside of the add items to item group, we're going to then say add to item, we're going to say item group, let's do ingredients, comma, citrine. There we go. And then this particular thing is just going to be called right here. So we're just going to call add items to item group, and now all of the items will be added to their groups. In this case, citrine is going to be added to the ingredients. You can actually add items to multiple groups as well. That also works, and we're going to see that in just a moment. But for the time being, we actually need to continue with a few other things, because while the item is now in game, it doesn't have a texture, it doesn't have a name, and all of that. And that all happens in the assets folder. Now this is extremely important, so please do pay close attention to this. The folder is resources, assets, tutorial mod, and then we can see they have an icon PNG in here. We can just delete this, that's fine. And then inside of the tutorial mod folder, we're going to create a few folders. We're going to right click new directory. The first one is going to be called block states. This one we're going to need when we add a block, but we still want to add this just so that we have the entire structure done. Then once again in the tutorial mode folder, right-click new directory called lang, L-A-N-G. Once again, tutorial mode, right-click directory. This is the models directory. And then tutorial mode, right-click directory called texture. Now, what's also extremely important, they have to be written exactly like this, the same casing, all of that. Then in the models folder, we're going to right-click again, new directory called item. And then also in the same folder, models, right-click new directory called block. Please note that it is block and item, singular, all lowercase, exactly written like this. The textures folder, the same thing goes. Right-click new directory called block. And then in the textures folder again, right-click new directory called item. This is the correct folder structure. You know, make a note out of this. Make sure that it is exactly written right. This has to be your mod ID, and then everything should be fine. So first of all, if we were now to go into the game, what would happen is that our item, if we hover over it, would have the name item.tutorialmod.citrine, which is of course kind of a weird item name to have. So in the lang folder, we're going to right-click new file called en_us.json. Please once again make sure that this is written exactly like this, not anything en_ or whatever. It is en_us.json. This is going to localize our game for the default English language. If you have another language that you want to translate, you can look up the translate codes on the Minecraft wiki and then also add that as well. For the time being, we're going to stick to English. What we want is we want a curly bracket right here, and then we want to put in the key that is going to be translated to something else. So the key, as I said, is item.tutorialmod. So this is always item.yourmodid. The name of the item. So the name of the item is the thing that you've given right here. This, by the way, also follows the exact same rules as the mod ID. It can only contain lowercase characters, underscore dash, and numbers, no uppercase characters, and no spaces. So here, after we have the key, we're going to put in a colon and then another string, and this is going to be the actual string that is displayed. Now this, in this case, can include spaces and uppercase characters on all of that. So that is pretty much what you want. So this is the localized name for English in this case. Now continue along in the models folder, inside of the item folder, we now want to create another file, and that is the citrine.json. So this once again, of course, is the name given in the mod items class, and then .json ending is also very important. Now the contents of this are, they can be quite complicated. I'm going to type this out and then I'm going to explain what they mean. This is also going to be available in the GitHub repository, linked in the description below, so no worries at all. So first of all, we're going to have a parent that is item/generated, comma, and then textures, colon, a open curly bracket, layer 0, written exactly like this, and then tutorial mod or your mod ID, colon, item/citrine. Now, what the frick is this craziness? Absolutely no worries. The parent basically determines how your item is displayed. Usually, a lot of times, you just want to use item generated for normal items. Then they're just going to be displayed in sort of the way that a normal item is displayed in vanilla. It's basically the 2D texture sort of extruded out into 3D space a little bit, and that is how this is going to work. Now, inside of the textures, you can see we are defining the layer 0. It is incredibly important that this is written correctly. It shouldn't be layer with an uppercase L, a lowercase l. All of these things have to be written exactly like this. Please double, triple, quadruple check. I've seen this numerous times that people have written parent or, textures has maybe a typo in there or something like that, or it's texture instead of textures. It has to be exactly like this. Double, triple, quadruple check. And then layer 0 right here, we set this to a particular texture. So this texture, where is this located? This is basically what we're doing with this. It is located in the tutorial mod folder. So it's going to look in the tutorial mod assets folder, instead of the texture folder, right? So right here, it's going to look in the textures folder under the item folder, and it's looking for a PNG called citrine. This is what we're going to add, and this is also going to be available to you for download in the description below. And you can see this is basically what this refers to. And then this particular image is going to be shown inside of the game for our citrine item. And now the item has been added. So let's, for the first time, go into the game, make a new world, and let's actually take a look at whether or not the item has been properly added, and then we're going to add a custom item group and a new item as well. So let's go into the game. All right, so we find ourselves in Minecraft, and let's just see. So in the ingredients tab at the very bottom, we should see the citrine has been successfully added. So that is absolutely awesome, because as you can see, both the item has been properly added, so the texture is correct, the name is correct, and it also has been added to the correct item group, which is absolutely phenomenal. So now let's add a custom item group and a second item as well. All right, let's start with actually adding the item first. So we're going to add the custom item. So how do you add a second item, right? Do you need another mod items class? Absolutely not. You just need another item right here. So what you do is usually what I do is I just select this, press Ctrl D to duplicate it. What I do is just I select this, press Ctrl D to duplicate it, and then a new one has been added, or you can also select it, press Ctrl C and Ctrl V to paste another one in. Now you're going to have an error right here because it has the same name. Of course, we want a different name, so I'm going to call this the raw_citrine. Same with this name, raw_citrine. If those names would match, then we actually would get an error and we wouldn't be able to actually get into the game. So that's very important that those are unique. Now let's add the raw citrine to the same item group. For this, once again, we're just going to duplicate this, and instead of adding the citrine, we're going to add raw citrine. And that is it. Now the second item has been added. Of course, it doesn't have a name, it doesn't have a texture, so there's a few things missing. So once again, in the en_us_JSON file, I can just duplicate this, make a comma over here because they always have to be separated by commas. This is now going to be the raw citrine, and this is the same thing. Raw citrine is going to be the name displayed. Same in here. I can just copy this particular JSON file, so I can drag it into the same folder while holding Control, and then I can change the name to raw_citrine. Inside of here, don't forget to change the name here, raw_citrine. It now looks for a raw citrine PNG inside of the item folder, inside of the textures folder, in the tutorial mod folder. So once again, this is the same idea. And we're going to copy this over. Now, all of the textures are going to be available to you as well, so no worries at all. And there you go. Now we've actually added the second item. And if there's just items like this, then that is pretty much always how you're going to go about adding them. Now, when it comes to a custom item group, it's a little more complicated, but also not to worry. So in the item package, we're going to right-click new Java class called mod item group. And inside of there, we're going to make a, let's zoom in a little bit, we're going to make a public static item group called citrine, and then this is going to be actually assigned inside of a public static void called register item groups. And this is going to look pretty crazy, but no worries at all. We're going to get through this. So this is going to be citrine, and this is equal to fabric item group, making sure we choose the one from the API right here. Once again, hitting tab to autocomplete this .builder, adding in a new identifier, tutorialmod.modid, citrine. So this is just going to be the path, right? This is our unique identifier. After the second closing parentheses, we're going to just hit enter and do a .display name. We're just going to say text.literal, and we're just going to say this is the citrine item group. So this, in this case, if we hover over the item group, this is what's going to be displayed. Now, the fact that we're using a literal string means that this is going to be the same regardless of whatever language we have. If we actually do want to have this change on different languages, we can also say text.translatable, and then instead of adding a literal string that's going to be displayed exactly like this, we can also add a key. So this would then, for example, be item group.citrine, and then this is a thing that we can translate in the en_us JSON file, right? So item group citrine is then going to be the citrine item group. And then if, someone has a different lang file, for example, I don't know, German DE_DE, then they could also translate this, and they can actually localize this to another language. That's why sometimes the translatable text here in this case is probably better. We also want to choose an icon, right? So .icon, this is going to be a supplier of a new item stack. And then here we're going to just say mod items.citrine. And then at the very end, we're going to say .build and end it with a semicolon. So the supplier might be a little bit weird. It's basically just sort of a thing that is going to delay the execution of getting this citrine item because of the difference in when things are registered. So basically just going to say, hey, when the icon, right, you remember the icon for the ingredients was the iron ingot. In our case, our custom one is going to be the citrine item. That's pretty much all that we're going to do. And then in the tutorial mod class, we need to call this at the very top, mod item group dot register item groups, and then there you go. Now we still need to add our items to it. So in our mod items class, we can just go in here, and we're just going to duplicate both of these. And instead of adding them to the ingredients, we're here going to add them to our custom item group of the citrine, right? And we're going to do the same thing here, mod item group.citrine, and then there you go. Now they're going to be added to both of them, which is absolutely no worries. You can actually do that, right? In the new item group system, you can add your items to as many item groups as you want, and just for demonstration purposes, we're going to actually add them to both of them. Why not? I mean, this is just, for demonstration. I think that makes a lot of sense. Right, there we go. And that is actually all that we need to do. So this is all of the item group that we need. If you need a second one or a third one, you just make a new item group. You just duplicate this, right? You make this one between 2. You change the name right here. You change the name here. And then there you go. And now you have a second item. So it's very, very straightforward. Once you have one of them, it is very easy to add another base. So let's go into the game one more time and see if everything works. All right, so here we are once again in the game. And if we open the inventory, we can already see that there are 2 arrows added here. And that is exactly what we want. You can see the citrine item group and both of our items are included here. And if we go to the ingredients, we can actually see that they are also included inside of the ingredients item group, which is absolutely perfect. And both of our items have been successfully added to the game. Absolutely freaking awesome. And that's it for this tutorial. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you next time. So, yeah.